From Mysing Media, this is Above Status. I would like to welcome you for joining me today. I'm your host, Myford Mysing. Above Status is all about sharing real, raw, and inspiring stories of young immigrants and uplifting conversations with activists, professionals, and politicians. The amazing thing about this podcast is that it is unedited and unfiltered conversations. Join us as we dive deep into personal journeys, explore challenges, and celebrate the triumphs of those redefining success. Today on the show, I spoke with Domonick, an accountant whose life story includes resilience, ambition, and perseverance. Born in the Caribbean, Domonick moved to Miami at a young age without knowing he would stay indefinitely, which influenced his childhood significantly. He faced numerous challenges, including being held back in school, financial difficulties, and even temporary homelessness. Yet, he continued with determination. We discussed his journey from undocumented status in the U.S. to earning an associate degree through a waiver and even winning the Dream.US scholarship to study accounting at Florida International University. He spoke about his move from Miami to Toronto for better opportunities, the challenges of adapting and reestablishing himself professionally, and his effort toward permanent residency via the Canada's Express Entry program. We also discuss his entrepreneurial aspirations with his clothing brand Made by Loyalty, which symbolizes redefining family through chosen bonds rather than biological ones. Domonick's insight into immigration, entrepreneurship, and perseverance provide invaluable lessons for individuals facing challenges or seeking inspiration to overcome obstacles in life. Domonick's story is rich with lessons on determination and adaptability. Join us to hear a remarkable story of resilience, ambition, and unwavering determination from a young professional shaping his own path. How is it going?
It's going, man. I can't complain, just another day of life, another day of working. Got stuff to do.
You've been telling me that you've been having a lot of issues, not issues, but a lot of workload because you are an accountant.
Yeah, man. Like, it's busy season right now. People need their taxes done, they need their returns, extensions. So yeah, it's around that time, man. It's around that time. If you haven't done your taxes, make sure you go get yours done too.
I haven't done my taxes, not even my business taxes, so I need to step on it. Tell me something about this week that dominated your thoughts.
Something about this week that dominated my thoughts. Like, I'm not sure, but I know for a fact this made me feel good. So at my job, we prepare like a lot of work papers for our clients and stuff. And one of the interns, they were having like a hard time of getting some adjustments and getting some numbers to tie out. Mm-hmm. They were working on it for like 3 hours, and then I seen them, struggling, and I went to help them out, and it took me like 45 minutes.
Wow.
To like clear those differences so they could like move on to the next thing.
Because you're a professional.
Yeah, because I'm a professional, but I know what to do too, because like a lot of things is just more so learning tricks to figure out what's wrong or what are you missing and stuff like that, and knowing how to ask certain questions to get the answers you need.
That's good. That's the same thing for me. I work as a supply chain manager, and it's all about troubleshooting and basically finding a solution to complex problems. So you have to go step by step to find where the problem is. Sometimes people want to take shortcuts.
Yeah.
And they get lost in the sea of information. But if they go step by step, looking at everything on an individual level, then they would probably spot what's wrong. Let's jump into it. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. What do you remember as a child?
So for me, I remember like, growing up in Turks for a little bit, the school that I went to, just being there, like being around my dad and my mom, when they were home from work, hanging out with like some friends. I also have like some memories of like, playing with like my sister and stuff like that, of us doing like a lot of bad stuff, like I don't know, like being of Caribbean descent, and you actually lived on the islands and stuff, you
Hmm.
do a lot of bad things that you get disciplined for.
Exactly. I was a trouble kid. I was the type of kid that when I'm around, you better run away because I'll set things on fire. I'll climb anything. I was like, oh my goodness,
No,
I was so much trouble.
it was like literally the same thing for me. Like I don't know, when I look back at it now, like I just think about like where was the common sense? Like literally between like setting like my brother's closet on fire, burning down like close to almost half of my house, getting my
Wow.
butt whooped for that, not really listening. I think like the most outrageous thing that I've done was like I almost set my dad's truck on fire. And my
Wow.
dad is Haitian, so
Yeah, yeah.
the type of anger he
Les
had.
amis.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I was finished. I was finished. I remember running into the room like, "Mom, mom." She was like, "Nope,
Nope.
you did this yourself."
You messed up. You messed up. That's interesting. So, I believe at age 6 or 7, your mom decided to take you on a trip to Miami and completely left you there without you knowing that that was going to happen. Tell us what happened there.
So like it was pretty much a long time ago, but what I remembered was like we were just coming to see like my grandmother and my sister. Because it's been a while, like we would frequent, well, my mom would frequently take trips to the States and stuff like that. Because, like once again, coming from a Caribbean background, everybody loves Miami. They go to the
Yeah,
States, they buy
yeah,
stuff, they take it
yeah,
back home with them.
yeah.
So in my head, it was just another trip like that. I was going out, going to the malls and stuff. Because when you come from a small island and then you're literally in a bigger city, you're just fascinated of everything.
Hmm.
And just doing that was such a big experience for me, but it just more so it didn't hit me until like my mom was gone and I was still here, and I'm like, why am I still here? Like, I don't know, I just feel like personally, like, because I'm not trying to make it seem like she abandoned me or anything, but
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how to explain it, but like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like when you were in Turks, she said, okay, Dominic, I'm going to take you to your grandma's. You're going to stay there for a while,
Mhm.
and then I'll come and visit. You never had that type of conversation.
No, no, she just brought me up there, we had a whole bunch of fun, and then it was time to go.
It was time to go, and then she went back home. But you guys talked on the phone. Did she come and visit here and there?
Yeah, of course. Like, we would talk like, on a daily basis. I'm not sure if it was like, once a week or something like that, but I know like she would talk to my grandmother and stuff like that, check on my grades to see how I was doing in school.
Hmm.
Just making sure like, I was doing what she brought me up here to do.
Okay,
Making sure I was getting good grades, staying out of trouble, and just honestly just making something of myself and making friends and stuff.
perfect.
And then she would also come and like travel, like here, like on at least like a few times throughout the year, just to like actually see us in person and stuff like that, just to be present
Hmm.
as well, like for the holidays like Christmas or New Year, since she was already here for Christmas, Thanksgiving here and there, but she would be there.
Hmm. Interesting. And what happened to your youngest sister and your oldest sister? The same thing happened, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Like first, like honestly, first it was like my older sister,
Hmm.
then it was me, and then like my cousin came too because her mom did the same thing. And then
Wow.
my other sister came too. So it was just like, yeah,
Wow. A whole family.
like literally, man.
So, how was it growing up with your sisters and your cousins?
I think it had its like, flaws, like its pros and cons, honestly. Cause like if you really think about it, I grew up in a house filled with women. I was like the only male, so it's like, Tanaja do this, Tanaja do that, and I was just like, oh my god, like why me? Like leave me alone.
I completely
Like
understand.
literally leave me alone. And then the aspect too, like I don't want to shame anybody. Like we're women,
Uh-huh.
but
Uh-huh.
when you live with women, different type of women, it's always some drama that happens. So
Yeah, yeah. Let's say things get passionate.
oh yeah, definitely, definitely a lot of emotions for sure.
Okay, here you are. Your mom took you to the States, and then you thought you were on vacation, and your mom went back. You had to stay back in the States. How was the adjustment? Like going to a new school. I believe you were held back by a grade or so.
Yeah, I was held back in the second grade, like twice. Because I think at that time, like correct me if I'm wrong. I think at that time, much more in the older days, it was always a good practice if you came from a different country, they'll just hold you back a grade so you can catch
Catch up.
up,
Yeah.
even though there's really nothing to really catch up upon, like but it was that, and it came to that decision where like my mom did that for me. So yeah, I was held back a grade. I had to like readjust, um also coming from like the Caribbean, like the way that we were spelled things would be different. Like we all say the
Yeah.
same thing, but we spell it differently and stuff like
Differently.
that.
Yeah.
And then just making new friends and also like adapting to the culture, because the way I would talk and the slang that I would use and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
like yes, it's Miami, it's a diverse culture, so it's
Yeah.
like it was easy to like get adjusted and blend in, but I had to still get adjusted to Miami itself, and the culture itself.
Mm. Mm. So, your mom left. You were left with your grandma
Hmm.
along with your cousins and sisters.
Hmm.
So your grandma was the only one taking care of you. How did you guys support yourself financially?
So the main providers were like my grandmother, because my grandmother was undocumented too. But she would do like a lot of babysitting gigs and stuff like that, where she had like clients. She'll watch them like after school or whenever there was like a holiday. She would like just basically babysit them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my grandfather lived with us too, so he would get money however way he can. Honestly, at the end of the day, with being the older schooled Haitian,
Yeah.
like he's a provider, so he made sure he got the money for like whatever bills need to be paid. And then my mom would also send like money to like cover our portion to like to help out with the rent, the power bill, cable, or to put food. She would also do that and then send us money for things that we would need just for like us, like to go places and stuff like that.
I know there's something with Caribbean people, not being judgy. Sometimes the parent is sending money back to someone to take care of the kids, but sometimes most of the funds go to the necessary caretaking. However, some of it make its way to other expenses that is completely different than what the funds was intended for. Did you have any of that with your grandma?
Oh yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Like it was times like um, where my mom would send like additional money,
Mm-hmm.
but we wouldn't see it. But it would be for like my aunt, which is her adopted daughter. She
Mm-hmm.
would get her hair done, the newest Jordans, and like back in the day, Jordans was expensive. Like it's expensive now, but it was expensive like back then. So it's like it would be us wearing like no name brand shoes, and she has on Jordans and stuff like that, which
Wow.
I kind of used to hate, because like being in Miami, going to school in middle school, kids were wearing like Jordans, Nikes, Adidas, like
Uh,
whatever was hot at the time. People were wearing it, and then there was me,
and then you show up, and then the kids are like, "What are those?"
like literally, like I've had my moments where I just wanted to like fight, but you know I was just more so, I didn't do anything that bad, because it's discipline, man. I just didn't want to get beat. I just didn't want to get beat, so I just had to like just take the embarrassment at the end of the day.
Wow, wow. So I believe tensions were really high with so many teenagers in one house.
Hmm.
And how was like let's say your relationship with your grandma's stepdaughter, adopted daughter. How's the relationship? I think there was some bad bloods there.
I was like, say for me, for my like my personal standpoint in my experience, it's like, when you meet people, like especially family members, they're all nice to you and stuff at first, but after a while they start to like, be a little mean. So yeah, like it was times like where like she was like exactly, just mean to me. I remember my cousin, she had came to visit from Turks and she stayed by us and stuff like that. And I was asking like my aunt, hey, can I use your laptop to do like some schoolwork? And she was kind of like, I'm not sure, like, am I allowed to curse? Like,
Sure.
yeah, like
Go ahead.
she was being a little bitchy about it, you feel me? So sorry for the cursing, but like that's how she was. And then my cousin didn't really like that, and she got upset with her, and she just gave me her laptop instead.
Wow.
And just opened it, and like she closed the door, and she was like talking to me like, hey, don't ever let anybody do anything to you or say anything, like, that's not like, you don't take any type of disrespect at the end of the day. And that's one thing about Caribbean people, they'll smile in your face, but yeah.
But sometimes there can be some bad bloods there.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Like a lot of times for me that I've experienced.
Since your grandma was one of the main providers to keep the household functioning, I believe something happened when you were around 12 or in your teenage years. What happened to your grandma?
I was around in my early teenagers. I think I was like 13 in like the 6th or 7th grade. My grandmother had caught a stroke. So it was kind of tough because she couldn't like really watch the kids anymore. Then we lost like a source of income. And then like, my mom was still sending money. My grandfather was still like, making money and stuff like that. But it also came upon like a different responsibilities. Like, yeah, my mom is not here. My grandfather's out here. So we had to be like, to take cares for like my grandmother and stuff like that. So it was like an adjustment and stuff like that. Cause like with me being young, I was still expected to go to school and stuff like that. But, my sisters and my aunt and stuff like that, they had to take turns, alternating with her and stuff like that. I can just say like from there, like that's where like really where my life had changed. It just took a completely different turn.
Wow.
Like that's when stuff got real for real.
I'd like to learn a little bit more. So, one provider, your grandma had a stroke. She couldn't work. How was the finances?
The finances were tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like even though like the extra money that my mom would send, we wouldn't see it, but they had to like cut back on that too, because like my mom wasn't sending as much because she was saving money. So we had to be strict. Like honestly, I can tell you there were times where we really didn't have food in the house, and I would be happy to go to school to eat the school lunch.
Wow.
At that time, it was like times like that. It would be days where like the power was off. We didn't have any power. It was hot, sleeping in the heat.
Wow.
And like Miami's already hot, but
Yeah, it's hot.
it gets hotter at night. You gotta like open the window, let all that humid air come in and stuff like that, and you just gotta pray it's a good breeze that come in through that window. So no power, water, barely any type of food and stuff like that. So it's just like, yeah, man. Especially the summers. The summers were the cruelest for sure. Literally.
So, were your housing situation impacted?
Oh yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Cause like I know at that time like my mom had came. She had left Turks to like literally like live up here in Miami to like try to help us out and stuff like that. Where she took on a lot more of the responsibilities, and she also had the finances to like help out with the bills and stuff. But after a while, she was undocumented as well too. So it's just like, she didn't have a job and stuff like that. So money became tight again, so it just became a point where it's like everybody kind of went their separate ways and stuff like that. My mom found a job in Louisiana. So it was me and my, second youngest sister, but she's older than me. We ended up moving up to Louisiana. My grandmother went back to Turks. My grandfather, went to live with his kids and stuff like that because they took care of him. I'm not sure what happened to my aunt after. Like I really didn't care what happened. Like I don't want to sound like a hurtful person, but I really didn't care. And I think my cousin and my other sister went to go stay with their godfather in Miami.
Wow.
So,
Was it due to eviction or
oh
just
yeah, definitely, definitely. Like we had got evicted from our landlord for sure.
wow, wow. So you moved to Louisiana. So how was the adjustment from Florida to Louisiana?
I would say it was pretty new, honestly. Simply because it's just like when you're that new person or that new kid feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And you come from somewhere and be like, oh, you're from Miami. I can hear that accent and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
So it was like, it was a pretty good experience because like, hey, look, like I'm out of Florida. I'm in a whole different new environment. I have to start over and make new friends. And I was accepted of the challenge. And then it took a while, but I did like, make friends and stuff and get adjusted to it and just live like a normal, regular life,
Mm.
honestly.
So let's talk about school. Let's say college. Um, you were in a group home going to college in Miami Dade. So let's go back. You moved back to to Miami again,
Hmm.
and then you went to Miami Dade.
Hmm.
And then while you were in college, I believe you were partly homeless. You went into the system.
So, when I moved back, like I stayed with my sister.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's a little difficult to explain because like we all came back together and we agreed to like live under one roof. It only worked out for like a year and a half, and then I went to go live with my sister. I was sleeping on their couch, and then at that time we got evicted from our place, so we went to go stay with her
A
husband's.
second time.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, literally, we went to go stay with her husband's family, and it. I don't know, like I don't want to sound distasteful because I'm very grateful and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But her husband was Haitian too, so her husband's father, he was Haitian, but he's a pastor at the same time. So you know the emphasis on that.
Yep. Yep.
So it's like we had like a little disagreement, and then like I had left because like I didn't want to like deal with it anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like temporarily homeless because I was living with my friend at the time because he opened up his door and stuff where I was sleeping on their couch, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
very thankful for that. And then how I ended up, like, you were speaking about the group home too.
Mm-hmm.
So how I ended up with that, it's like a aged out program for foster youths, though even though I wasn't in the foster care system,
Mm-hmm.
um, I still faced this similar challenges and stuff like that. Because even though the state deemed me to be homeless, sleeping on my sister's couch and stuff like that, not living like under my mom, and at the age of 17 and stuff like that. And then I was with this program that connected me to the group home because they were looking for mentors for like foster youth and stuff.
So you were a mentor.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. How was that experience?
The experience, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little challenging, but it really taught me a lot about myself and stuff like that. Because like I understand I don't come from the system like most of them do, but we do have similar backgrounds, where we had like, a lot of family trauma, a lot of family issues and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Even though I know who my parents were, that doesn't mean like,
Yeah.
I have like the best relationship or the best experience with them,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I'm always like, able to relate. And I always tell them, hey, look, like we may not have the same upcoming, but we're both under the same roof for a reason. So we face something similar, and me just sitting here talking and just giving my experience and like, giving advice and stuff like that. That really like, just showed me a lot about myself.
That's good. That's good. Um, how were you able to pay for education for your associate degree?
So I remember I was back in high school. I had this one PE teacher. She would always be like, Dom, did you register for college? Dom, are you gonna do this? Dom, did you do FAFSA? And like, at the time in my head, like I was always like, I'm gonna do it later. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna do it. But it just came to a point where like, she wasn't bugging me, but she kept asking, and I was just like, okay, like I'm undocumented. I can't get FAFSA, and I can't get a loan to go to college. So it's like, not possible for me. And then she told me about like, the homeless waiver and stuff like that, you would
Uh,
qualify for. for that because like technically I didn't live with my mom because she was my legal guardian. I was staying with my sister and her husband,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still young, like under the age of 18. So I was able to
Mm-hmm.
get it like after talking to like, my school counselor, they put in a word for me, and then I talked to the lady, and they just signed me up for a waiver. I went to Miami Dade College. I showed it to them, and then they were able to put it in for like, just one semester.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to like talk to them to see what they can do for the other semester. So they like turned a blind eye for like that one time.
Okay. So that's how you were able to get your associate degrees.
I was able to get the 1 year off the associate
1 year
degree.
of the
The
years.
second time I had to look for like, I had like a institutional grant
Mm-hmm.
that covered my summer classes. So I took as much summer classes as I can.
Wow.
And then in that time I had to apply for the it's like this thing for Miami Dade called the American Dream. Because I didn't get it out of high school, but then like, I had people that really like spoke on my behalf and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which I had to retake. I think at that time it was called the perk test,
Mm-hmm.
the perk for math. So I had to like retake that to get a good score for them to consider me, and they made an exception for me, and I'm very grateful because I was able to finish, with my associates.
Interesting. We'll go back to how you got your bachelor's.
Hmm.
When did you realize that you were undocumented or your undocumented status had an impact on you and prevented you from living life to the fullest?
Um, for the first part of your question, like I think I always knew I was undocumented. I just didn't understand the seriousness of it because like being in Florida, you have a lot of people that are Haitian. Hey, I'm Haitian. I was born in Haiti. Me personally, I was born in the Bahamas, so I can always
Mm-hmm.
like, say that I was born in Nassau, like the Bahamas and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I didn't really understand like, the impact of that until like I was in high school in Louisiana, and I was just like, because my mom, she was like a single mom at that point,
Mm-hmm.
providing for us, working and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I just want to have my own money. I just want to have a job so I can like, spend money on stupid things,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
my friends were doing. And she was always telling me, no, you can't get a job, you can't work. And I would be like, a little frustrated. It didn't hit me a lot more because I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna focus on school. But it hit me a lot more with like when I returned to Florida and then I was getting ready to graduate high school. My friends were getting credit cards, debit cards, they were getting jobs. And
Mm.
like most of them were applying to like, different universities like FAMU and UF. And I know for a fact that I couldn't afford that or even get financial aid for that. So that's when it like honestly really hit me.
How was the conversation with your mom and with your siblings? How did you guys hash it out? Like, did you guys had meaningful conversation about how you find yourself in that situation?
Um, it's just like honestly, like I don't know if you can relate, but it's one thing about Caribbean people is like when things happen, we don't talk it out. We just like it's
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Like you may still hold on to that grudge or whatever, or you might let it go over time, but it's just like
Hmm.
it's just certain things that you don't sit
You
there and
don't
like
sit there
you
and
don't
talk.
communicate like, it's different for like us because like we're a lot more older,
Hmm.
but when you're dealing with like, people that are older than us, they're still stuck in that type of mentality. So it's like it's a little hard to like, communicate because even if you communicate it, they'll feel attacked.
Yeah,
They'll
yeah.
feel attacked. So it's just certain things like you just have to like come to terms with it yourself and just move on with it because they're probably not gonna think anything about it regardless. Because in their head, it's like, hey, I did the best that I can. But
Uh-huh.
in the moment of doing that, I agree with your decision, but because of that, it's a lot more harder for me too
For you, yeah.
at the same time. But yeah, it just wasn't no conversation that was held
Mm,
about it.
interesting. So, now you are older and you're wiser, I
Hmm.
believe.
I am, trust me, I am.
Have your attitude toward your mom for putting you in this situation, has it changed? And how so?
I would say yeah, because like when you get a lot more older and you see a lot of things that's happening in the world,
Hmm.
it just makes you a lot more grateful that at the end of the day that because it wasn't just us that went through it too. It was her that went through it too. And as an adult, I feel like it's a lot more harder because when you're here, like you can go to school because that's all that you're expected to do until like, you're 18.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't 18, so she had to deal with it while we were like still, enjoying it until we had to like face it ourselves too.
Mm.
So it just honestly made me a lot more appreciative and like especially coming from like, Miami and starting over here in Toronto too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm technically, in her shoes, seeing how it was like even though like yeah, I have like something figured out, but I know like, up and leaving, finding a new place, making friends, starting life all over again, like I understand that experience,
Interesting.
honestly. So I can't
Interesting.
really fault her for that, I can like have my mixed emotions, but at the end of the day, it's like I understand.
Mm.
That's the most important thing, being able to understand.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty important to reconcile with the current knowledge that you
Hmm.
have because she did it for better opportunities,
Yeah.
right? Although you got better opportunities, but it still impacted you in a negative way and prevented you from living your teenage years to the
Hmm.
fullest.
Oh yeah, definitely, man.
So you graduated from Miami Dade and
Hmm.
you went to FYU.
FIU.
FIU.
Yeah.
FIU is extremely expensive.
Oh yeah.
So how did you make it happen?
So at the time, like, I was getting ready to graduate from Miami Dade College, and then I had this counselor. She had told me about the Dream.US scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And like I already knew about it from high school, but I didn't think that I personally would get it. So like I kind of like passed up on that opportunity until like, it was time for me to graduate from my associates. I had basically two choices. Like I was already set in stone. Like I'm either gonna get this scholarship. If I don't, I'm going back to Turk because I'm not living another day up here. So I ended up getting the scholarship. I reached out to I don't know if you know Armando.
Armando?
Uh, I reached out to Armando. I told him the situation. I'm like, hey, look, I missed the cutoff date by, 13 days. This is the
Mm-hmm.
scholarship requirements. He reached out to Gabby Pacheco. They talked about it, and the requirements ended up, becoming a lot more, flexible. So I was able to qualify. I wrote my essays and stuff like that.
Mm.
I had the counselor review them. Her name is Ida, by the way. I had Ida review, the scholarship, essays that I wrote. She was here helping me correct them. And then I made sure, like, I was in her office when I submitted my application. Like, we submitted it together. And
Mm.
then it was just more so a waiting game. I think I didn't find out until February that I got accepted. And then I had applied for FIU a little before that. So everything worked and played out in my favor. No, I lied. It wasn't in February. I think it was sometime like around the summer.
Mm.
I think it's in the summer. I'm not sure. I don't. It's been a while.
Okay. Thank you so much for making it through the first 15 minutes of this episode. This tells me you are enjoying our conversation so far. But I do have a quick favor to ask, as always. Please pause now, take a 2-minute break to like and subscribe to our podcast. After you finish this episode, I would love if you could tell us what you think of our show. Your support helps us share these powerful stories and reach even more people. In return, I promise to continue improving the show, bringing you the most genuine, unfiltered, and inspiring conversations possible. If you or anyone you know would like to share your unique story, we would love to have you on the podcast. Please send us a message on your favorite social media platform at above status. So tell us about the scholarship and how it helped you got your bachelor's degree.
So, honestly, just like getting the scholarship really gave me a purpose to continue living in Miami. Because without the scholarship, I would still be at home just sitting down, not doing anything. So I'm the type of person like, I like to be productive with my time.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the scholarship allowed me to focus on my degree for 2 more years, which I was able to like, get into accounting, get my bachelor's of accounting. And then also like just being able to like, actually experience the university life for what it has to offer. Because like, yes, the scholarship covered my tuition, which is why I was able to like, participate in a lot of on campus activities, being involved with Progressive Black Men Incorporated, NABA, FIU, just having like a social presence in the university, and then also a social life as well too, partying and stuff like that, where I met very, very life-changing friends, that I even still talk to this day, man. And just being there, like, it really allowed me to like, actually live a normal life and get to experience, college for what it is. Because most times, we don't relax or like have fun. We're just focused all about our studies. But I did both because like I just wanted to make the most out of it. You only get to experience college at this time and at this age one time in your life. So
Yeah, that was the same situation for me. I balanced studies with fun. So I would say I was one of those cool nerds because yeah, I like fashion, I like to party, and I was also good at studying. That I graduated with a 4.0 GPA. So what could you ask for me?
literally.
And I wasn't just dedicated to my studies. I also wanted to go out with friends and have a great time. So I've really enjoyed my time in college. So it was awesome. So after you graduated, you went about life and you decided one day you wanted to move from America to Canada. How that idea came about?
So, I actually thought about moving to Canada, like, before FIU. Like, it was during Miami Dade when I was still in community college. But I was just looking into everything and I just thought about the idea, but I didn't really, like, heavily consider it until, like, after FIU, whereas, like, I had two job offers to go work at two good accounting firms in New York City, and I lost both of them. I was studying for my CPA. And just losing that at that time, and like I'm like, yeah, man, like the
How
CPA
did
is
you,
pointless.
how did you lose it?
So most of it comes to like, my undocumented status and stuff like that. And the two firms that offered me, even though they're well-known accounting firms, they didn't want to like sponsor me because, U.S. immigration is very strict on the HB1 visas.
Uh-huh.
So they just reneged the offer, and I was like kind of hurt about it because they were pretty good paying jobs, to live in New York from somebody of like, my age coming out of university, wanting to network. It was like literally peak or prime time to like live there. So when I lost that, honestly, like I just gave up on America. Not the American dream, but I just gave up because like I was 20, I think I was 23 at that time. Life is not gonna slow down. It was just gonna keep passing by. I spent the whole year out of college, not doing anything. I was working under the table, still making money, but it's just like
Was it enough?
it's not was it enough, but it's just more so it's like I struggled 4 years in college to get a degree, but I can't even put that degree to use.
Yeah, yeah.
So in my head, I was just like, yeah, man, it was time for a change. And then I just ended up getting like a Canadian visa. And then the hardest challenge, honestly, was just finding a job before. Like I applied to tons of roles, got denied. And then like I just thank God for networking in college because I was able to reach out to like one of the partners at a big four company. I told him, hey, look, like I'm getting ready to like, move to Canada. Do you know anybody, that works in any accounting firms? They put out a word out there, he reached out to a friend of his, the lady that interviewed him when he was an intern.
Uh-huh.
Um, she reached out to me. She's actually in Vancouver, in one of the accounting firms in Vancouver. And we had a quick call for like 30, 45 minutes, just explaining my background, my situation, and just telling her like, hey, look, like I just need an opportunity to like, for a job to work in accounting. And they weren't hiring at the time for that firm. But she reached out to the other partners that she knew at bigger companies. And, I was able to get like, another call from another partner, and then he wanted to offer me, but they didn't have any roles open. So they just pushed me here to the Toronto office, which worked out in my favor because since I was moving to Canada, like I wanted to live in
In
Toronto.
Toronto. Okay.
So I did my interview with like the partner and the executive director interviewed me. I told him everything about my situation. It was just more so like it didn't even feel like an interview. It was just more so telling them about my life. And then I felt like they possibly had to ask me some questions that was more so work related. So it's just like, yeah, because they knew the type of work ethic that I had, like to be able to like, finish college debt free in my situation and stuff like that, still going to school, having to take 2 buses to make it to my 8 a.m. classes, and the bus rides were 2 hours. You feel me?
Wow. I know because I believe you lived in Homestead,
Yeah, I lived in Homestead to go to FIU
and then FIU is all the way down
in Sweetwater,
in Sweetwater. That's close to
Coral Gables.
Coral Gables, man. Yeah. So you got a job offer, and it was time for you to move to Canada. How was the moving process? Because it's expensive to move from one country to another. How was that experience for you? How did you finance that?
Prior to me getting the job, because I got the job, I did the interview in January. I got the job like towards the end or in the middle of January because they offered me a week later after the interview, which was a good thing. But August of 2023, I had reached out to Gabby Pacheco. I was talking to her, and then she recommended that I started a GoFundMe. In my head, I was just like, like nobody's ever gonna like, contribute money to this and stuff like that. But I still gave it a shot because at the time, like, I really had nothing to lose. So I did the GoFundMe. I put up a picture of me sitting on the FIU Panther. I told my story and stuff like that. And I shared it out to like, Gabby. I shared it to Don Graham. I shared it to like everybody that I connected with in college. Like I even posted on Instagram, and I'm not the type of person to post my personal life on Instagram, but it was just like, last shot, do or die type of moment. It's like I have nothing to lose at this point,
Exactly, but a lot to gain because you have to start a new life. And
Oh yeah, definitely. So like because of that, and the people that know me, like being a genuine person, like I gotta say Cabot's perks. Because a lot of people really contributed. They shared my story, even if it was like $5. That $5 got me closer to my goal, And I was very thankful for that. I was able to like, crush the amount that like I initially signed up for. And like even more, like I got a little more over that. Because me, like I needed a certain threshold, even though it was less than what was actually needed. I just needed the minimum to get by. Because being an immigrant in the US, it teaches you how to be resourceful and how to get by,
Yeah.
So I just put the minimum amount that I need, and I just took off from there, honestly.
So do you remember having any conversation with your mom and sisters about moving to Canada? Because it's a long distance. How was those conversations?
I have to say with my mom, like I always told her like I'm gonna leave at some point, because I told her like cause she actually has her green card and stuff like that. She was always telling me like she was gonna sponsor me, and the type of person that I am, like I'm a realistic person. Like I'm already 23. Just for me to
It will
qualify,
take years.
like it'll take like close to 10 years, and I'm like I'm not waiting 10 years. Like you can miss me with that. So I'm telling her like, I actually got a job offer to go to London too, like London, UK. And I was telling her, oh, I'm going to take the offer and go there. The only time you'll be able to see me is when you come and see me. Because at the time I didn't know like, if I'll be able to travel back and forth to the US and stuff like that. But I told her, and then she would like be upset about me. But me, the type of person is like, I would joke about it, but I don't take too far. Just so that way it's like, hey, at least I told you, so you have to start accepting it now,
Yeah.
And then I was lucky to get the job offer here in Toronto because it was a lot more closer, and she was able to accept that because she know, like, if anything happens to me, like she can always catch a 3-hour plane ride to come and see me. And then I think at that time I threw like, a few going away events with my friends and stuff like that, spent some time with them. And then I did a dinner with my family. And then I think I seen my sister, yeah. I had to say my sister. You know how some women are tough? That's like literally my sister, and I almost seen her cry for the first time, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
don't do that in front of me. Don't do. I already have a certain image of you in my head. Don't change that.
Don't change that. I know you as a rock.
Yeah, you feel me? Like don't do that.
Don't do that.
So yeah.
Interesting. So, how was it when you arrived to Toronto? I believe we had a phone call and I provided you some advice.
Yeah.
Not to sign any lease agreement without seeing the place in person,
Oh, yeah,
do
definitely.
temporary living arrangement. I believe you were in the bad part of town for the beginning of your trip here.
Oh, so when I came, like I was at the Hilton
Uh,
for a bit because I came with the lady of the housing program. So we I came together and stuff like that because she wanted to make sure that I wasn't alone, and then I got adjusted. So, and she didn't think that I was like kind of ready. But when she seen me, like, oh, I already scheduled like, apartment viewings. I already had like I was already talking to a realtor. I already had an appointment to go to the bank to set up an account to go get my SIN number, which is like a social security number
yeah,
in Canada.
yeah.
So I already had like all of those stuff like, lined up. I just had to like go ahead and do them. And I did them like literally like I landed at midnight, slept for a few hours, woke up, and I just left and went to do what I got to do.
Yeah, that's the same
Stuff
thing
like
too.
that.
I did those on the same day. I
Oh, yeah.
arrived in the morning, and then before the offices closed, I think I went to Service Ontario and Service
Oh, yeah.
Canada and tried to get my paperwork done because I had to start work the following Monday. So it could be really, really difficult and anxiety inducing. So do you remember having any let's say application phobia? Because me living in the US undocumented always have to renew your papers, and people always tell you you need this type of paper. Do you remember having any difficulties with getting all of your paperwork in order?
I wouldn't say difficulties, but I know like for me, I was just paranoid before actually coming into Canada because the way that it is of like people don't know is like, sometimes if you get a port of entry letter, that's not your actual visa. They issue it. They give you the visa when you actually get into Canada.
Into Canada.
So it's like I was getting all my paperwork. I was making sure I have like my passport, the one that's registered to like, my application. My ETA is already linked to that passport to be able to come into Canada legally. Make sure I had the right money in my funds, like, because sometimes you can pull out your bank account and just show it to them. But if the signal isn't there, I had to print out bank statements showing that the money's been there for a while. So I was just paranoid, but honestly, that's just what being undocumented in the U.S. teaches you, because you have to like, really think like that because you don't want to put anything past you, honestly.
Yeah.
And then even coming there too, like I found out like I had kind of did something wrong with the type of visa that I had. Well, with the type of visa that I had gotten and stuff like that, but I spoke to them, everything is just more so when you deal with border immigration, it's just more so their preference. So we were able to communicate it and stuff like that. And that was okay,
Okay.
because I was truthful about it and stuff. So
That's good. That's good. So how was adjusting in Toronto?
I got to say, it's similar to Miami, but it's not Miami. It's similar to Miami. It's not Miami.
Because it's cold. It's like the tundra.
Oh yeah, definitely. Being cold is one of them, even though I like the cold, but I would just more so say like, it's a different, when they say Miami's diverse and Toronto's diverse, it's a different level
Different
of diverse.
diversity. Yeah.
Yes, that's
The
exactly
makeup
what
is
it
different.
Literally, man, literally. Like literally. And that's something that I really had to get used to, man. Like, even like when people go party or, you just go out and go meet people and stuff like that. I would say people like, even though they're fake friendly out here, they're still friendly versus Miami. They'll just give you a stink face. So it's like, I kind of had to like, being in places and stuff, I kind of had to like fix my face sometimes. Cause it's just like a natural like thing. Cause like, it's just natural.
Yeah.
And I had to be like a lot more thoughtful, especially when talking, how I talk, how I say certain things, But yeah, it's completely different. But I like it though in a way because certain parts and certain people here remind me of being back in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto people, they can be complicated. So some of them are nice and some of them are not that too
Oh
nice.
yeah, definitely, man. But I think after being a while of like being around people, you just learn to trust your gut feeling or your vibe. Literally, you don't feel a way for no reason. That's all I gotta say.
So which company you work for and how is your, what do you do for them as an accountant?
For me, I don't know if I would have like disclosed the name of the firm,
Okay, sure.
but I can say like it's a big four accounting firm here in
Okay.
downtown Toronto. I do a lot of more so of like corporate taxes for Americans. So it's just more so, Canadian companies who own businesses in America. So we just do their taxes and stuff like that.
Okay. And that's because they have businesses in both Canada and the US, or is it personal or business?
It's a mixture of both, but I'm just more so on the corporate side for the business side and stuff like that. So we just prepare like their tax returns only for their American businesses. The Canadian team usually handles their Canadian filings, and we just handle the American filings. And we just coordinate with like one another if we need like information. We'll reach out to like a different department in our company and stuff like that.
So I believe you are getting ready to be a permanent resident of Canada. How are you going about that? I know you applying for the express entry program. How is the process going?
I gotta say, like, I have mixed feelings about the process right now. But the first thing, like, I really want to say is like I'm actually grateful to be able to like actually apply for PR and stuff like that because that was like never an option to like do in America. So just being able to like have the option here is like a worthwhile feeling here. But just because it's a worthwhile feeling, it's also competitive, especially with Canada's immigration right now, where there's like a lot of changes in the CRS like points and stuff like it's
Yeah,
fluctuating.
yeah.
And like right now, like I have a low score right now, but I still submitted like my application in the pool so that way like at least I'm still there. Because you never know, you might get lucky one of these days where the score drops extremely low.
Uh-huh.
And you don't want to be that guy that missed out, like FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yeah,
You don't want to
yeah.
be that person. So it's like as long as I have my stuff in the pool, like I can always update it to see if my scoring like improves and stuff like that. But yeah, everything is up in the air right now. I'm just hopeful that if something comes through for me.
Interesting. What are some of the steps you have to take to get into the pool? I believe there's a degree evaluation. What else?
So I had to get my degree from FIU evaluated by West. So they gave it like the equivalent of a Canadian bachelor's degree. You have to take the English test, whether it's like the self-pip or the IELTS. Like I'm not gonna lie, the English test. Look, man, I speak full-blown English. I can communicate back and forth, but it's different than when you're studying for an exam about English because they get you. They get you for real, man.
Tell us a little bit about that. I believe you scored high on some, but
Yeah, like
what happened?
I scored high on some, but I scored low on some too. Like even though like I speak English and I understand English, it's just the way that it is for their testing methodology. Like they will give you questions that's not even related to like that thing.
I know.
And then sometimes they'll speak slow so you can hear everything. And then when it's time to answer the questions, it's about something that you don't even remember because you're focused on remembering the most important things. So it's just like, figuring out ways to like get that and to improve your scores and just figuring out stuff, man. Like I think after, because I only took it once, but I may take it again to just try to see if I can like improve my score.
Improve your score, yeah.
But after like the first attempt, you should already know like certain tricks to like help you, get a better score. Like if because it's always going to be the same structure, you might not get the same exam or something like that. But the structure is going to be same. Like if they're speaking and they're speaking too fast, grab a pen and paper and write down information. Honestly, so that way you can retain it. because it's already, the English test is already boring enough, you know, it's already boring, and you get aggravated, like, come on, like, literally, you get aggravated at some point, because it's just like, it doesn't stop, but yeah, man. So I did that, then I had to give like a copy of my passport and stuff, I think, to them, for them to look up and stuff like that, because I already have like IRCC profile because of the visa that I'm on here, so that way they can have that. And then I just submitted it in the pool, and they just told me they just told me which pools I was qualified for. So for me, it's the federal skilled worker program, because I work as an accountant here in Canada. And then it's also the Canadian experience class program as well too, because I do have Canadian experience since I work for a Canadian firm here.
My wife and I went through the same process. We got work visas to come to Canada, and then after a year or 2 years, we had to get into the pool, the express entry pool. We did the same things that you are currently doing. For example, getting our degrees evaluated, getting English test done, I can tell you, and then I did my French test as well. So we got into the pool. It took us like 3 months in the pool, and then we finally got selected. But right now I know it's extremely difficult because the pool is really large, and they are asking scores that are extremely above 500.
Yeah.
So hopefully you get selected soon, so that way you can have your PR here. So what's the next thing for Domonick in Toronto? What are you looking forward to?
For me, I'm just honestly looking for like a variety of stuff. Personally, like, you know, I had to apply for another visa to give me another year here while I'm still working on PR. You know, hopefully my firm will be able to sponsor me. But in case of that, like, I've already, like, you know, been saving my money, been investing my money. You know, I'm trying to pick back up on my clothing brand, network with a lot of people. I'm still, like, you know, establishing myself here in the city of, like, you know, Toronto, because, like, yeah, I came here like a year ago, but I feel like I haven't met enough people for me to, like, you know, be able to get around the city or feel comfortable, because, like, you know, most of my time goes to working, so I don't have the ability to, like, go out on a weekday, so I just do it on the weekend, network and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just those things, man. I'm just living life, but I'm still trying to set myself up for, like, the future as well too, for, like, the near years, you know, next 5 years from now type stuff.
Interesting. I always welcome entrepreneurship. Tell us about your clothing brand. What is it about? What is the next step to get it to the next level?
So for me, I own a clothing brand. It's called Made by Loyalty,
Okay.
which is, like, you know, loyalty is family, family's loyalty. You know, seeing the way that I grew up and stuff like that, I really felt like, you know, certain times in my life, you know, family wasn't family. Just because we have blood, that don't make us the same family. Because it's, you know, friends that I met in college at FIU and friends that I met at high school, like, you know, we're this close. Like, they were my own brother. Like, you know, we don't have the same mom or dad, but I could still call them my brother if I need anything, or if I just want to talk, and they do the same thing too, like, you know, just to call and check up on me. And I realized that a lot of people might feel the same way too, you know, especially for, like, you know, the individuals and the kids, you know, that's been in the foster care system as well too. It's just to more so spread that feeling of, like, you know, family and stuff like that. Like, just change the definition of what family is, you know. Just because you're my cousin doesn't mean I have to consider you family, you know. So, like, I don't want to, like, sound mean about it, but it's just, like, honestly the truth in the day and age that we live in. And then that's just the feeling that I want to, you know, spread. And I was doing pretty all right with, like, starting it up back in Miami, but I did have, like, a lot of restrictions due to, like, you know, my status of being undocumented when it came to, like, you know, getting the EIN for the company. Because I had to get an I-10. I was trying to get an I-10, and they wanted me to give up my physical passport. And I'm like,
I'm not doing that.
Like, me give the IRS, and the IRS already struggling to give people their money. Like, let's be for real, man. Like, I refuse to do that. Literally, because they're not going to be liable if they lose my stuff. So I was just doing that. And then, like, I put a pause on it when I decided to move to Canada, but now that
Mm-hmm.
I've been here for a year, I've met some people, that work in fashion, that does like, Toronto Fashion Week and stuff like that, to get like myself acquainted for it. Like I just had like, I reached out to one of my friends, like a wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got like some sample hoodies, t-shirts and stuff like that so I can try. So I'm like about to start picking back up on it now because look, Canada is not cheap, man. You need another source of income.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely do.
Like literally, like if you don't have a significant other, you need another source of income. Literally, man.
You need to hustle.
Literally.
So, speaking about different source of income, you're trying to increase your sources of income by taking your CPA. What is a CPA, and what does it how does it help you?
So a CPA is a certified public accountant. It's a license that just gives you the ability to like, handle a lot of like more tax matters with the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, your word is credible because you're licensed to,
Mm-hmm.
to give advice and stuff like that. For me, I do a lot of accounting like work, but I can't really, give advice. It's just like a lawyer, they can't give legal advice unless they're licensed. I can't
Mm-hmm.
give tax advice on the record, unless I'm licensed.
Mm.
So it gives you that, and it also allows you, to open a lot more doors to like, grow your salary, whether it's in like public accounting or private accounting. So yeah.
Interesting, interesting. So, if you were able to travel backward in time or forward in time, what time period would you go to and why?
This is a good one. This is a good one. Cause like, can I say both or just one?
Sure.
All right, me, I would say I would travel back in time before I was born and just tell my mom, give birth to me in America. Give birth to me in America. The only reason I say that is just like, like not out of animosity or like, fear and stuff like that or
Mm-hmm.
hatred.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kind of like, sometimes, you just wonder what your life would be like if this one thing didn't
One
happen.
thing didn't happen.
And I
Yeah.
just want to be able to like see a preview of that, honestly, because I
Okay.
know I probably wouldn't be in Canada. I probably might have not even went to like, college, but I just want to see, what would like, what would have I done and stuff like that.
Interesting.
But for me, at a point in time where I would like to skip is like just to be, in a much more stable position. Even though I'm like stable, my immigration is still up in the air with the visas and stuff, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not PR yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I would want to go to a point where like, I'm a permanent resident here where I don't have to like, think about applying for another visa or looking for, because like I'm already on track to become a citizen.
So you would like to simply fast forward.
Yeah, literally, literally.
I mean, all of those will happen because you will get your PR pretty soon once you get the express entry invitation to apply for permanent residency. So
Of course.
um, I'm looking forward to that for you. So
Of course.
um, I'd like to ask you, what advice would you give a young immigrant who has had the same or who is going through the same thing you went through? What would you tell them?
Um, it would be 2 to 3 things that I would tell you. Like I would tell them it would just be like one, it's like no matter what, you just have to keep going, time doesn't stop or wait on nobody. Just don't stay still or stagnant in the same position that you are. Just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the second thing would be make do with what you have, like be very resourceful
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day it's two types of people in the world that we live in. It's people that are a victim, of their situation,
Situation,
or
yeah.
they are, a champion of that situation because
Yeah,
they overcame it.
yeah, yeah.
That would literally be that. And then the third one will be like, time. It's like no matter what you do, time will pass you by, life will pass you by.
Mm.
You would see like, a lot of people that you meet, they would be more ahead, in their life, even though they started where you started, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't have the same challenges or obstacles that you have. But don't compare that to like, to your life because you know what you have to overcome. But at the same time, you should also be working towards a better life
Mm-hmm.
because when time passes you by, it's just at the end of the day, what do you have to show for it? It was a point in time like I was in Miami. Yes, I graduated college, but I was still broke. I was still staying at home, not putting my degree to use. A year passed by. I got an offer to work at a big four company. I moved to Toronto now. Like I have stuff to show for it. You feel me? It's
Mm-hmm.
not more so the materialistic stuff, but it's what those stuff represent for me of what I had to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be the three best advice that I would give to young
Well,
folks in my
thank you
situation.
very much. I think our listeners and viewers will definitely appreciate um, the great advices you provided. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great having you. It was a very interesting conversation. Um, we hope to have you on the show again for future conversations because you had a very interesting story, and I really appreciate all of the effort you put in to conquer your adversities because you faced a lot of adversities, but it did not define you. You became who you are today because you believe in networking and basically forging long life lasting connections to others. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Of course, of course. Thank you for having me here and to be able to like, share my story to like other individuals who may be, in the same situation. I always like to like let people know that, hey, look, like, yes, a lot of people are moving on in life, but you're not the only one that are stuck in the same situation as you because it's many people before me that has overcome that situation. Like, you, your wife, Gabby Pacheco, like it's a lot of people that's overcome it. You just have to like really stay determined and consistent with it. Cause like I know after a while you would become burnt out, but you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And just to be able to like share that is like really a testament. Like it does get better over time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Indeed. And that's it for this episode of Above Status. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. I'm your host, Myford Mysing. Above Status is a Mysing Media production, and our theme music is by Steve DeHady. A major thank you to Domonick for helping make this show possible. If you enjoyed today's show, we would love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave us a written review wherever you are listening or watching, either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or any other platform. Your feedback doesn't just help us grow. It helps more people discover these powerful immigrant stories and uplifting conversations. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and follow us on social media at Above Status for even more content. If you or anyone you know would like to share your unique story, we would love to have you on the podcast. Please send us a message on your favorite social media platform at Above Status. Please come back next week for a brand new episode. And remember, no matter where you are or what challenges you face, to stay above status.